Hello and welcome to Take Back Time. My name is Penny Zenker and I'm your host. And today we're going to talk about an important topic, burnout. And we're going to talk about it from a different perspective, the antidote of burnout. Most people talk about what it is and they don't really get to how do we get past it? How do we avoid it? And I'm so excited to really dive into this conversation. Marcy Axelrod is here with me, and she is a dear friend and also a brilliant mind that we're going to pick today. She's a keynote speaker, a two-time TEDx speaker, award-winning author, and TV personality. And after working on Wall Street and at Lehman Brothers, Marcy switched coasts to Silicon Valley, investing 20 plus years, she's not really that old, as a leader in KPMG consulting, high-tech strategy practice, and working with some of the world's most successful tech leaders. She's been interviewed in Forbes multiple times and is a contributor to Wake Up with Marcy show Saturday mornings on CBS. Wow. So that's even a new one for me. So Marcy, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Penny. It's always fabulous to be with you. We have such an animated discussion every time.
For sure, for sure. And, you know, burnout is an important topic for people. And I know you've got a new book that's coming out. Tell us a little bit about the book and, why that is potentially a solution and an antidote to burnout.
Yes, definitely. So How We Choose to Show Up is the name of the book. It'll be out this fall. But ultimately, when we bring choice to anything, we're not burned out. Right? When you have choice, you are exercising freedom, free will, you are living in a world of options. And right there, it means that you aren't, so stressed, so overworked, so hyper over managed by a boss, let's say, or a partner, or maybe our kids, that we feel like we're stuck. I'm
going to stop you there for a second. Hold on. There's people who are listening who are like, now that's oversimplifying it. You're telling me that just because I can just choose not to be burnt out. That I don't choose. I'm just being the hat of all the people who are listening, right? There's people who are saying, I don't choose, my circumstances at work. I have to do all of this work and we're low on resources. I didn't choose that. And I'm having to do the work of 2 or 3 people. I didn't choose that, So what do you say to those people who are already in that place where they're calling BS here?
No, that's exactly right. And I'm really, really glad that you brought that up, because once you're already in the hole, you don't see options, you feel stuck. That really closes the world to us. It closes our sense of what is possible, and it makes us turn our mirrors inward as opposed to outward. So I call this being barely there, which is the lowest level of showing up, right? We start with being barely there. As we move into our kind of intuitive reactionary self, we are just showing up. That's what 80% of us do 80% of the time. And then when we get to a stage where we are more grounded in ourselves, right? More ready for our situations and more connected, or what I call all intelligent with society, then we are truly showing up. So when we're down there in that small place with our mirror facing us, this is when the only way to step out of that is to just sit and try to clear the cobwebs out and do what you refer to as a reset moment, which I often
Perfect time for a reset moment. Yes, right. When you're down in the hole and all you see is the hole, right?
When you're that far, it's even hard to ask ourselves, how am I choosing to show up? Because we're in this subconscious state. We are being instinctive and instinctual, which is kind of a very old evolutionary part of our brain. And it is based in the past. And we are now living in the past, and the past is now presencing to us, because it's what the left side of our brain is bringing out. The left side of our brain very much exists to kind of grab and get, to manipulate the world, to act on it. But in doing so, we're basically creating a model for ourselves. It's the map, not the territory. So we can't see beyond that. It is lifeless. It is dead. It doesn't flow.
So today, I think a lot of people find themselves in a hole, whether they're officially burnt out, or maybe they're just distracted by everything and anything. Squirrel, right? They just can't seem to, get away from this, but partially from their own doing, in terms of they have their notifications on, right? These are choices that we're making. But would you say that, because what I'm hearing you say is that when we're stuck in our left hemisphere of our brain and we're just in the grab and go, that's where we get stuck, is when we're stuck just focusing on that side of things. Is that right? And that could be also in a situation where we're just living in a state of distraction.
Yes, I want to be precise here, Penny, because most of us are not so stuck on the left side that we can't volitionally choose to turn our mirrors more outward and let the world presence to us with a higher level of specificity. And here's a word I want to get to, Penny, a higher level of wonder. Because the moment that you can notice things and start to attune to the more that is there, then your choice is regifted, and then you can find paths out. You can get more sleep. You can have better nutrition. You can listen with that variation that pulls people more toward you, and then they interact with you differently. And now the world is back closer to like your oyster than your prison cell.
Right. So, let's take us back in that hole, right? And so it's kind of like you said, so if the mirror is looking down at us and at the rest of the hole, right? So if we turn that up and, I call it, right, we reconnect with the bigger picture, whatever the bigger picture is. Maybe it's, just recognizing that things aren't as bad as we've made them out to be, that, what are the different options that we have that'll help us get out of this place? Because we can leave a job, we can choose to get more sleep, and some things like that might just give us some more resourcefulness to be able to, again, reconnect to what that bigger picture is, right?
Yes. So the neurobiology of this, Penny, is that when we are able to shift from our left brain grab and get mode into our right brain mode of truly kind of presencing with, to, and for the world and seeing the relationality of things, we are now able to access a level of creativity and one second, I'm getting stuck, so I hope you don't mind cutting this out of the.
Just go with whatever comes, because I do not cut. This is really hard for me because it creates a huge amount of work if I have to cut.
Send it to me, then I'll do it. Send it to me.
So just go with whatever comes up. Just stop at creativity. Whatever. It doesn't matter. Nobody, they're picking up little bits and pieces of it. They're not hanging on every word.
Yeah. When we switch into our right brain system, now we're living in the relationality of everything, right? It is showing up with, to, and for us, and we are showing up with, to, and for it. And this is how we can be a distinct self without being truly separate from what is there. And this is really the way that the world works, right? When you think of a magnet, there are two poles. There's north, south, high, low, positive, negative, but you can't actually separate from it. One exists because of the other. And if you chop off half of the magnet to try to get rid of that, let's say, positive pole, it doesn't go away. All that you've done is shorten the magnet. So the more that we work to kind of push back on things because we're burned out, the deeper we get into that hole, and the more we let go and recognize that everything is flowing and that we're all part of each other and part of a broader system, the more freedom we have and the less sucked into a burned out state we get.
I heard a really good analogy to this balance of polarity about breathing. We have to breathe in and out. It is the relationship. We have to breathe in, we have to breathe out, right? That's the way that we function. So what I'm hearing you say is it would be like holding our breath when we resist. that we're not getting that balance because we're holding our breath versus allowing the natural balance of breathing in and breathing out. Is that an analogy? Because I think maybe that's something people can relate to since we all breathe in and breathe out.
Yes, yes. So physiologically, relating to our breath very much does enable us to switch from our left brain grab and get control system to our system of, love and beauty and art, and understanding what you mean as you move your body and look at me with a certain care and interest. All of that is right brain stuff, right? And a nervous system set to stress doesn't allow us to access that. So breathing, dance, music, art, poetry, these are the things that enable us to truly show up the way that we want to, right? With health, with kindness, with friendship, with care. Right, the opposite of burnout. So the
Right.
more we can stay in our right brain system, or at least have more of a switch, right, left, right, the more we'll thrive.
So how do we do that, right? Let's say somebody's in that hole and they recognize that there's an opportunity for a reset moment. What does a reset moment mean to you, and how can we activate that? What are some strategies that we can do in that moment to help to shift us into our right hemisphere of our brain?
Yeah, there are three key things here, Penny, and I'm really glad that you brought this up. So there's a cognitive process of asking ourselves, how am I choosing to show up? And it can be as you walk into a meeting, it can be as you greet your day, it can be as someone who typically might trigger you walks in. How am I choosing to show up right now to this? We can also plan for it. So let's say there's something that's going on tomorrow or later. We can plan in advance. How am I choosing to show up to that event or to the fear that I have around a situation that comes up? We can write about it. We can
So like
journal.
setting an intention type of thing. So I can know that I'm going into a difficult circumstance and I can set an intention of how I want to be
Right.
and how I want to show up. Is that what you mean?
Right. So this is a cognitive approach of asking a question, how am I choosing to show up? Then there's the behavioral approach of maybe writing something down,
Okay.
stopping to breathe, listening to a few bars of our favorite tune. Those are behavioral things. And then there's a very physical, quick little tip that people have told me is fabulous. At the end of my TED Talks, I talk about tracing a 3 for level 3 truly showing up. And I have people raise their hand, and with the index finger of their opposite hand, you sit there and you trace a 3 on your palm. And you feel it in your palm. The level 3 truly showing up is going into your system. And in doing this, you are switching from a triggered nervous system into much more of your relaxed sensing system, because you're sensing your palm. It brings you back into your body in a similar way that breathing does. But this gives us our palm to focus on. We're actually feeling something physically. And people tell me, Marcy, it's a game changer because it takes literally 3 seconds to do it. And it shifts you right there.
Very interesting. I have a question. So I saw this recent video that talked about the hemispheres.
Yep.
And it talked about how a simple way to integrate our hemispheres is to lift our leg up and move to either side. Is this true? Could I just do this for, so what I'm doing for those of you who are listening is I'm putting my arms out and I'm putting my opposite leg over to touch the knee of my opposite knee. So I did this in aerobics, right? So just as a question, would that be something that I could do like in the day, or like if I'm being down or frustrated, could that activate and bring my hemispheres together? Or is
Yeah.
that like total BS and I'm just watching these things and believing anything I see on YouTube?
No, the answer is absolutely yes. Moving, music, art, wonder, time in nature, jumping jacks, all things like this are useful to reset us such that we can move at least a little bit from our left brain manipulative, controlled, grab and get system into our more open system of relating to the broader world. Now, that said, we need to allow the rest of the world to presence for us. If we do that, but then we immediately zone back into kind of a stressed state, the wonder of the world recedes, and we don't suddenly recognize, wow, the light is hitting that book in just a certain way, and now the blue is looking like a silver. And isn't it amazing that blue can become silver under the right circumstances? So ideally, what we want to do, Penny, is create an environment that very much invites us to stay more in this broad relationality of the way the world works. This is more in our truly show up system, not our default state of improv and just showing up, which 80% of people tell me they do 80% of the time, according to my 20 years of research. And by the way, just showing up is fine some of the time. It's only an issue when we do it so much that we're not as happy as we want to be, nor as healthy, nor as successful, nor with relationships as truly deep and fulfilling as we want them to be.
Right. That I mean, it totally makes sense, right? Is that we can recognize the signs and symptoms when we're not getting the results that we want, then we can come back to how are we showing up? How are we choosing to show up? And recognizing that there's probably another level that's going to serve us better.
Right. So another way to get from that left brain misery, right, to if we are burned out or somewhere near there, is to actually recognize a certain model of how the world works. And when we understand this model of how human beings, Penny, are designed to truly show up, we can catch ourselves and do our reset right before we get that deep. And I'll just describe, the very surface of the model, which is that we have always existed in three roles, right? Even as early humans living in the savannah thousands of years ago, we were always selves living within situations and as members of society, be it a tribe, be it a family, be it a business team, right? We are selves within situations as members of society. We are in those three roles at all times. Burnout is a state where we're only in the self, and it's the small version of self. We are almost extinct to the reality of the situations that we're in because we're so apathetic, right? And we don't really feel our belongingness within, the world and broader society. So the way to avoid getting stuck in the self is to recognize that there's a groundedness that we need within ourselves. There's a readiness for our situations. And then there's this deep connectedness, or what I call intelligence, in our societal role. And when we think about those three, we're selves within situations and members of society, that can then help us to not get stuck too much in one and to have a little bit more of a flow, right? Because you're showing
giving us the bigger picture, right? The broader perspective of understanding that it's not just about ourselves. It's about how we fit into the situation and our society. So, then the whole doesn't look so deep, right? Because we're seeing things from a broader perspective.
Right. So zooming out, staying in that bigger picture, Penny, right? You are impacting me right now. I am impacting you. Our all of the people who may listen to and watch this, we don't know who they are. We don't know where they are, but they are showing up with us right here now. Okay, all of them throughout time. So we are in relation with 2 and 4, everything at all times, and it is with us. And the more that we recognize, right, our brains and all of us, we are designed to exist as societal members, just as much, if not more, than designed to be individualized selves. And part of what's making us so miserable and lonely and anxious and sick today is that we've overweighted the individualized role of self, and we've underweighted our role as a member in something that's so much bigger: nature, the towns, all the community focused groups that give us a sense of belonging, right? Those things that feel more distant, and where it's truly lost, the moment where it's truly lost is in our lived experience. It's in the situations.
Because we get lost in the situation. That makes sense. I mean, it makes sense to me, because if I think about any of the times that were very difficult situations for me, the way that I was able to get through them, when I talk about my resetting and reset practice, is because the reset practice is to step back, to get perspective, right? To back away and connect with the broader picture, so that we can realign for how we want to show up, right? This is how our work really intertwined. If I think about it, it was always about, how can I do the right things for my kids, or what can I do for my team, or looking at that broader picture always grounded me to bring my best self, even in a difficult situation. How do we get up and dust ourselves off? It's very often for a principle that we stand for, or a person or a group that we stand for, right? That helps us to get up, to have the courage to do that, and to continue to take steps, even if they're difficult.
Right. So what you just described, Penny, is this beautiful othering, turning your mirror outward toward others. What does your son need, right? How can I show up in a way that relates productively to others? Notice the moment we turn the mirror outward from the small self to the very, very large way in which we all impact each other and everything else, that enables us to step out of our left brain, very fixed, dead, abstracted world, and get into this more enlivened, flowing dynamism, which truly describes the systems that are out there, that created us, right? So this is why we have 2 attentional systems. We have the left side and the right side. And literally one, gets us the food, it feeds us. But the other one, that right side, that helps us stay alive.
Right. So I get it. So it's it's having that balance between the two. I mean, so, and I don't want to get too.
It's actually a right, left, right. Let me just comment. The word balance now doesn't work for it's. I have a tenuous relationship, because I don't think anything is truly in balance or out of balance. There's a flow, right? And ideally to recognize something new. The newness exists with our right hemispheric attentional system. So to even be able to hear you say something, I need to be attending with my right brain system. Now, to quickly make sense of it, I need to reduce it and simplify it and categorize it and say, I'm familiar with that on some level. So now I've just switched to my left brain. But then to think about it and come back to you with something novel, again, that relates not to the staid old thing that you said, but to the true newness of what you said. Now I'm returning back to my right side. So really the ideal flow is right, left, right.
Okay.
So don't think of it as a balance. It's really right, left, right.
Okay. So it's not a balance. It's a flow. So what happens to the person that does left, right, left?
The person who starts in their left brain is only seeing a presentation of the past. They're saying, "Up, got it. That's a laptop. That's a book. That's a computer. That's a person." And with that comes, I know what this is. I am in an all-knowing state. And with it, all my beliefs and my judgments and my biases and all these things come right with me to, go, like, kind of, I've been here before, that cliche that I really don't like, which is like that been here, done that type of thing. That person is living in the past, and it's probably evoking an habitual behavior, reactionary stuff, old stuff, what we want to get away from. So if you're in the past, you are very much just showing up or barely there, right? Or just on the left side of the show up continuum. And that's what you're doing.
So somebody with a left, right, left type of system is kind of barely there or just showing up. And eventually, if they're not careful, that will lead to burnout.
Well, yeah. I mean, you'll be like, nothing will be new and
apathy.
You'll be as far from wonder as possible, or enchantment, or all those really lovely, enlivening things that just keep us fascinated.
Apathy, complacency, distraction, Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Right. I've never heard it in that way. And that's why, it's really fun to have this conversation so that people can really look at things in a different way. So what's different about the way that you approach this, these hemispheres and the way that your work is? What's different about that than, let's say, traditional positive psychology or something of that nature?
Exactly. So what's different about it is that the research across the 20 years has truly shown that this is the evolutionary model of how we're designed to show up, right? Selves within situations as members of something larger, right? Such that we need to be grounded, ready, and all-intelligent. And what's different about it is that the right brain hemispheric kind of wonder and true presencing and the health and the joy and inventiveness that comes with it is on the right side, that I call truly showing up. And we know what the 3 skills are to get there, right? Grounded in ourselves, ready for our situations, and all-intelligent for our societal role. That's what's different about it. I want to mention something here that goes back to what you said before about the left side. Let me be very, very clear about the differences here. The left side is truly representing to us what's in front of us as a version of the past, because it is immediately reducing it and categorizing it out of context, right? So it's largely dead. It is like a financial model of the stock market, okay? And it is therefore predictable because it's not changing. The moment that we can see the world with a relaxed nervous system and be in our right hemisphere, and we then notice what is different about things and the flow of the world. It's an alive, exciting place that shows us what is new. This is where we are creative. This is where people feel our care. This is where I can read the language of your body and you mine, right? This is where 2 people belong with 2 and for each other and come alive within the space between, because it's also among and it's also within both of us. I mean, there's a very, very different way of attending to the world. And it's an attentional system that we are born with, but that's been largely taught out of us.
So I have a question for you. I remember hearing you talk about, not now, but in the past, about like a duality of how we're showing up, right? And maybe that's these different attentions. So meaning that we're present and then we're present to how we're being present. Am I saying that right?
Perfect.
So the question is, are we really present if we're present to how we're being present? Like, is that not a distraction? that's keeping us from truly showing up? I don't know. Maybe I'm digging too deep into
I
this,
love
but
this. This is so great. This is so great because we're also moving here from instinct through intuition into insight. But let me park that. We can come back to it. So yes, to truly be in our right brain, present within the flow of a situation that's happening right now, that is presencing to us, right? Or with, to, and for us, right? Yes, the attentional system that's right there very much is this open, flowing, what I like to call fierce receptivity, right? To what is there. What we also need to do is have an awareness that we're also in the moment in a certain way. So we are showing up a certain way, but we are also aware or attuned to how we are showing up, right? So it's being in the theater, subsumed into the movie. It's so exciting. But we also have a subtle awareness. We're sitting in a chair in the theater in a movie, and we are going to be appropriate for the situation, right?
right.
So the way that we do that is practice. And we can practice this by asking ourselves things like, how am I choosing to show up right now? This moment right now. And then that stays with us for a while. And then we lose that. It's very much like returning to the breath in the practice of meditation, right? You return to the breath, the thought comes in, you lose it, you go off, then you recognize, oops, how am I choosing to show up, right? Back to the breath, back to my flow of the moment, showing up more the way I want to. Dual awareness is largely what it's called.
Okay. Right. And that's how I feel that we recognize a reset moment, is when we have that dual awareness, right? That's where we are experiencing somebody's aggression, and we're recognizing, hold on a second, before I react to this, did I create this? Like, what's my relationship in this? Just as an example, right? So that we're recognizing it as a reset moment before we respond,
right?
So that we can decide what is the best response here, so that we're in service of the relationship or whatever it is that we're, attending to. So that's how I see, those two coming together. Is it is kind of a practicing the duality.
Yes.
And then, like you said, kind of coming back to it from time to time when that signal comes up, because your antennas are paying attention. Exactly.
So this is very much of a right, left, right type of flow of our brain systems. And if it's all right, I want to share with you a really graphic story that I also have in my book. That's very much of an example of this.
Sure.
Okay. I'm in the emergency room at Greenwich Hospital. Okay. Talk about triggered moment. So for all those families out there who have teens with mental health issues, you are not alone. So there I am, and they had to keep us overnight because the psychiatrist couldn't get to us by 6 p.m. when they go off their shift. And turns out I didn't recognize that no one can be in the ER with us. It's just myself, my daughter, no one else can come. So my parents show up. They're both physicians. I let them know where I was. They show up. The head of the ER marches right over to me and says, essentially, get your purse. I'm kicking you out. You can't have guests. You are using too many resources. You just got to go. And like in the moment, and like I've got the guard on my left hip. The woman is picking up my purse. Let's talk trigger here. Okay.
Right.
My daughter's in the bed. She's been in the bed for, almost a full day now. No one wants to be there. The room is shared, all of this. The systems are beeping. She's got my purse, and the security guard is like expecting me to start walking. I cannot just abandon my daughter. And tears are like streaming down, overload, overwhelm. And I feel the wetness of the tears. And I looked at the woman and I said, I need 10 seconds to breathe. I don't want my daughter to feel abandoned. So I breathed a few times, and she basically just starts to walk out. She doesn't even give me my seconds.
Right.
I looked at my daughter and I said, I need to step out. I'm going to be back. And I walked out. When we got out, I had my 20 seconds on the walk out, and I looked at her and I saw her totally differently. Instead of as this person controlling me, taking me away from my child in a time of desperate need, I saw a mother, a daughter, a sister. And I said to her, you know, in another time, I bet we could be good friends. And it was the last thing she expected out of my mouth.
I'll bet.
And her countenance changed and her eyes softened. And she said, a year ago, I was right where you are. My son was having some similar issues. And let's just say after about a 3-minute chat, we were both crying and hugging, and we both walked back into the ER. And she left me there. And it had actually been a contribution for her, and it was a contribution for me in such a huge way, and for my daughter. And I want the world to hear this, because in moments like that, when we can see each other as human beings, just like us, and I know that there's a meditation of just like us, which is very powerful. You know, we can suddenly be members of a single tribe again, and we can suddenly be there to help each other again. The skill, this is our societal role, and the skill is all intelligence, because it's when we actually harness what I consider to be the intellect that exists, you know, within the universe and within human nature that we were designed with. And it's basically just, let's connect with each other as people.
And that's the definition of all intelligence. Am I understanding that correctly? Is when people come together to connect, to support one another.
Yes, you can describe it that way. Yes.
It's just for people who are listening, because it's not a term that people are familiar with.
It is the skill of you know, caring for others that is inherent within our societal role, or our role as societal members, which is one of the 3 roles in which we show up.
Right. Well, what a great story to also bring this to a close, right? In the context of seeing how it all plays out. Is, you know, you're not saying that we're not going to still have these difficult moments in our lives, and you're not saying that you're free of them because you have this system and you just choose to, you know, rise above it. That you took a very difficult situation that could have taken you down a rabbit hole where you could have lashed out at that woman and she could have kicked you out and things could have gotten 10 times worse. But instead, you took a moment, I'll call it a reset moment, to ground yourself and to decide, as you said, how you want to show up so that you could create the best possible outcome for yourself, for your daughter, and even for this woman. So I think that states the power of it. And I'm so excited to, you know, to read your book when it comes out. So just tell people where they can find more information about you, and then we'll close down the show.
ChooseToShowUp.com is the website. Marcy Axelrod is my name. There are 2 TED Talks out there that you can find on TED.com. And on, you know, on the website, contact me and I'll put you on the list for pre-purchase of the book if you're interested. It comes out later this year.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for being here.
Penny, thank you. I really hope that we've made you know, a novel contribution to the world out there when it comes to learning how to reset, show up, and avoid burnout.
For sure. I think people are seeing things in a different light. And there's so much more, right, that we could discuss on this topic. So maybe we'll have to, you know, have you come back and talk more about burnout and other conditions and situations that we find ourselves in, and how your research has made a difference and can help people to choose better. Let's just put it like that.
Yes.
So thank you all for being here. We'll have all the details in the show notes of how to get in touch with Marcy. I know that you've taken some things away. I know that we went a little deep in the rabbit hole in the context of talked about a lot of science and a lot of terms that you may not be familiar with, but I know that story for me totally connected it all together. It made it all make sense. If there were any open loops, it closed those loops. And I hope that it did that for you as well. And that you're going to be now present, right? You're going to have that dual attention where you're going to be present to how you're showing up while you're showing up, and that you're going to recognize those signals when you need to take a reset moment and really choose what your best next step is, to choose how you're showing up and really recognize how you are showing up may have affected the circumstance that you were in. So that's a lot. I don't normally say that much to tie this together, but I know that you're going to take away a huge value is how this can really enhance your life in so many different ways, whether it's in your relationships with others or whether it's your relationship with yourself. So it's up to you to choose how you show up. My name is Penny Zenker, and this is Take Back Time. We'll see you in the next episode.